Welcome to Stories Untold, a podcast about immigrant entrepreneurs, the businesses they've built, and the challenges they've faced along the way. I'm your host, Sharzad.
And this is Panis. Each week, we sit down with entrepreneurs from different backgrounds and talk about how they build their companies from ideation to execution. Our goal is to inspire, empower, and help you take your idea to the next stage.
On today's show, the story of a young Iranian-American aerospace engineer who moved to the States at the age of 16. Payam initially started working at NASA, and the idea of starting his own company never really crossed his mind, until a strange event that took place over 4 years ago. It was March 8, 2014, when Malaysian airline Flight 370 went missing, and the search for this missing airplane quickly became the most costly aviation search in history. As a naturally curious engineer, Payam saw a huge gap in the way the industry gathered information from space. He co-founded Capella Space, a data company that provides persistent information through small satellites. Capella has since grown to now over 48 employees and has raised over $35 million in Series A funding.
Payam, it's such a pleasure to have you on our show today. How are you doing?
Good to be here. I'm happy it's Friday.
Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday to you guys too.
Thank you. And it's right before Burning Man, so we're lucky to catch you right before that because you would have been gone for
Oh man, we're gonna talk
a
about
week
that
or
too.
something. I mean, you know.
Yeah, I'm
just
pretty
a
excited
little
to
bit.
Burning Man. It's 3 days away. I'm not ready. But we actually completely shut down the company.
Wow.
So it's a mandatory vacation
It's
for
a holiday.
everyone. It's a holiday. And it just happened to be on Burning Man, you know? It's there's no coincidence, obviously.
All right. Well, Payam, you've achieved more in 27 years than most people do in a lifetime. Tell us more about yourself and introduce yourself to our listeners so they can learn about you.
So my mom wouldn't agree with that. Let me just put it that way. It's just probably Iranian moms. You guys would know that they still think I haven't achieved anything. My mom still wants me to change my major and get into a completely different industry.
What is that industry?
Oil. She wanted me to get into oil actually. And I keep telling her, I'm like, Mom, look, like I think I'm doing relatively okay. But no, she still wants me to do a completely different major. Anyway, we went on a tangent. What was the question? I forgot the question.
Well, you grew up in Iran. What part of Iran did you grow up in?
I grew up in Tehran.
Okay.
I was there until 16, and I decided to leave, and I moved to Houston. Mm-hmm. And you might think, why would someone from Iran move to Houston, Texas? That doesn't really add up. I agree with you. But I moved to Houston. I was there for a couple of years. I went to high school there. And that was a lot of fun. And then I moved to Austin. Austin was a lot more fun.
Yeah. I agree with that.
You were in Austin? You guys were in Austin?
Dallas.
Yeah, Austin is a great place.
Actually, Plano.
Yeah, college town, very small. I went to UT Austin. I did Aerospace there. I was there for 4 or 5 years. And then I moved to LA. And LA is a completely different beast, right? Mm-hmm. Moving from Texas to California.
Kind of similar to Tehran, the lifestyle.
Right. That's why there's got, a million Iranians there.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it. I didn't like it that much. I was there for a couple of years and I moved to the Bay and here I am now.
You went to high school both in Iran and in the US. That experience must have been something kind of relatively unique to be in high school in completely two different environments.
Yeah.
How similar are high schools in Iran to the US?
Not similar.
No
for
kidding.
one, high schools in Iran are completely segregated, right? So boys and girls have different, they go to different high schools. And that, that's a huge difference. The interactions between people are very different. You're in a class with 40 guys. And if that doesn't freak out your audience, I don't know what would. But you grew up in that environment and then I moved here. And that was a completely different environment. I remember one thing, in Iran, every time the teacher comes in, you have to get up for respect. And you guys might have had similar experiences.
Yeah.
And the other thing that you got to do is if you want to go to the bathroom or
you got to
raise your hand.
Yeah.
And I kept doing this for the first few weeks, and people were looking at me like, "What is wrong with this guy?"
Right.
And so that was fun, but quite different, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. And were you a good student? Be honest here. No judgment from us.
I fluctuated. I think in Iran I was a really good student in terms of grades, but I was always getting in trouble. Always getting in trouble. There were many incidences where my dad had to come pretty much rescue me. I mean, I got suspended from school many times.
In Iran?
In Iran.
Yeah.
And then back in elementary, I was actually in U.S. for a couple months.
Mm-hmm.
I went to third grade here and didn't know English. It was this little 10-year-old. And I had organized this entire Pokemon tournament. I don't know if you guys know what Pokemon are. It's playing cards.
Yeah.
And I was playing it in the bathroom. The principal walks in, figures out the whole situation. I get suspended from school here. And then we moved back to Iran because my dad was like, yeah, this is not happening.
So pretty much you got suspended both in Iran and here.
Yeah, I'm just not good with following rules.
It seems like that's the case with a lot of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
It's almost a requirement. If you want to be an entrepreneur,
That's a
you
common
need to...
theme we're hearing.
Yeah, exactly.
Where did the passion for aerospace come from?
Back in middle school, I was doing a lot of astronomy. So I was into just looking at the sky. I had a bunch of telescopes, and I would go to these what's called star parties, and they are far from parties. There's a bunch of nerds. It's super nerdy. There's nothing happening there. You go out in the middle of the desert, and where the light pollution is very little, and in that environment you can see a lot of stars. I mean, it's mind-boggling how many stars you can actually see in the sky. And I was doing a lot of that. I was pretty excited about that. I was in the astronomy Olympiad, and that's also far from sort of anything athletics. It's not really like an Olympics. It's a bunch of nerds trying to answer questions about stars and how they form and the galaxies and stuff. And at some point, I guess I realized I'm more of an engineer than a scientist. And so I switched from astronomy to aerospace to build stuff.
Very cool. Did you actually go to college in Houston, or you directly transferred to Austin?
Yeah, no, I went to U of H for a couple semesters. Unfortunately, they didn't have an aerospace program. And so I was trying to figure out how do I get into aerospace. I was actually studying biology in U of H. I was a lost soul. That's what I was. And then I found UT. I just drove to Austin. I loved the city, and decided to transfer to UT Austin for aerospace.
And what happened from there? You got an internship. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I got the internship through my advisor. Okay. I applied and I didn't get in. So like anything else in life, you kind of have to work around things, and you got to find a connection. And it happened that my advisor knew the director of JPL. They were buddies from back in the day. And so he called him up and was like, I have this guy, you should give him an internship. And so I got an internship at JPL the first summer, when I was freshman year. And then I went back to the same place every summer. I went there 4 summers, pretty much every summer. And I was pretty much hooked on NASA. I mean, that's what I wanted to do from, when I was going to these star parties.
Yeah.
And so once I got the first internship, I didn't even think about other places. It was like, okay, I'm just going back to this place. I'm going back to this place. And a lot of people thought, do you have a problem? Like, can you not find internships some other places? I was like, no, I love this place. I just want to go back to the same place. So it was a lot of fun.
What were some of the cool projects you were working on at JPL?
I worked on a whole bunch of different projects, small and big. The coolest one was probably the Mars Curiosity rover. So that's the sort of a minivan rover that we sent to Mars a couple of years ago. I think it landed around 2012. And I worked on the flight software, so kind of the firmware that runs the rover and how, what to do and what not to do. It was a very small portion of a very big team. That was probably the coolest thing I've ever done. I think I commented my name on one of the flight softwares.
Of course, you have to.
Yeah. And I shouldn't have said that, actually. Can you guys take that out? This is
We'll think about it.
I'm gonna get in trouble over that. Yeah.
At that point, you keep going back to JPL every summer. Did you know what you wanted to do after you graduated?
Yeah, I graduated at the wrong time. So I graduated in December, which is kind of this weird, I didn't get the fireworks. I didn't get the good speaker.
Right.
And then I wanted to go to grad school, but the grad schools don't really get any students mid-year. So I had to wait for, the fall semester. And I had this 8 months. I was like, what do I do with this 8 months? And that's when I decided to go work full-time at NASA for that 8 months with the intention of wanting to just leave after 8 months and go to grad school and get a PhD. None of that happened. So I went to work. I got in this really cool project, and I decided to sort of postpone grad school for another 2 years, worked on that. And I wanted to go to get a PhD in aerospace, super technical, and that didn't happen either. And I ended up doing business at Stanford, which is completely different than what I wanted to do.
And that's where you met William, your co-founder.
Yeah. The guy was getting his PhD at Stanford, doing some super technical, remote sensing work, and it was this research group that he had, right? He was getting his PhD, and the most boring group of people in the world. Oh my God. I used to go to this research group every Wednesday at 4 p.m.
He might hear this podcast.
I know. I've told him multiple times. Everyone knows about this. No, but I was just fascinated with this sort of remote sensing from space, specifically synthetic aperture radar, which is what we do. And I know that just sounds really fancy. It's really not. And I somehow found this, research group at Stanford that was focused on that. I didn't know much about it, and I just wanted to learn. It wasn't about a company. It wasn't about, let's go build something. So I started going to these research meetings Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Again, like that hour of my life, I will never get it back. But, and so I met William there. He was on vacation, I think, for the first month. So I just kept going and I didn't see him. And at some point I gave up because no one really was interested in what I wanted to do. He was very PhD focused. And so I emailed the entire group and I said, look, guys, like, this is what I'm trying to do. If anyone is interested to come chat with me. And Will responded like a month later saying, this is pretty cool. I do something similar. A month later. Yeah. Let's a month later. So that's how I met him. Yeah.
Okay. So, he responds to your email and you guys meet up. At this point, did you guys know, was this going to be a side project that you were going to work on? Or at what point did you say, hey, we can turn this into a business. This could be a company. Yeah,
totally side project. Let me backtrack a little bit and sort of tell you why I was going to that research meeting, right? Some of you might remember there was this Malaysian airline that went missing a couple of years ago. Yeah. It took off from Malaysia, it was going to China, and it just disappeared.
Yeah.
And it was a big deal. I remember I was watching CNN every single day for maybe even an entire week. They were talking about this plane. Multiple governments were looking for it. No one could find it. And this was exactly when I left JPL and come to Stanford. And I was watching CNN and I was pretty disappointed. I was like, wow, we have failed as Homo sapiens if we can't find this 777 Airbus plane with 280 some fellow human beings on it, just goes missing on this one planet we call home. Like, why is it that we can't find this plane? And so I started looking into what are we doing to monitor our planet from space, right? There's a whole bunch we do, but there are huge gaps. Plane goes missing, we can't find it. And so I found out about this technology that military has been utilizing for a long time. It's called synthetic aperture radar. It's a type of imaging, and it doesn't have limitations that other type of imaging does. So, optical imaging, which is very similar to your phone, can't see at nighttime, right? If you take your phone to a dark room, the image doesn't look good. Well, same from space. There's a whole bunch of these satellites that are using optical imaging. They can't image at nighttime, right? And they also can't see through the clouds. They just capture the clouds, right? And that turns out to be a pretty big amount of time. Half the Earth is nighttime, half the Earth is covered with clouds. You combine those two, 75% of Earth at any given time, it's either cloudy or it's nighttime.
Right.
And so that's the huge gap, and that's why we can't monitor our planet from space. There is this other technology, synthetic aperture radar, can see through clouds, can see at nighttime. And so when I went to that research group, I was trying to learn more about synthetic aperture radar. And so when I met Will, after a month of getting back to me, we started going out for drinks, and it was just, dude, just tell me about SAR. Like, tell me about synthetic aperture. Tell me, how does this work? Why are people not doing it in small satellites? What are the benefits of this? And so for the first 2 months, it was just back and forth conversations. It had nothing to do with the company. Mm-hmm. And then we decided to just become nerdy and start, putting stuff on paper. And we thought we could shrink the size of these really big satellites and do this to something really, really small, which would then enable us to put a whole bunch of these satellites up and be able to monitor our planet very reliably through the clouds, nighttime, daytime, all the time. And we got to a point that we were like, okay, this is really interesting. We think it was an interesting engineering challenge. And we thought to ourselves, we got a solution that might work, but we had no idea if anyone cared about this, right? We just thought this is something really cool, and it's disappointing that we're not doing this. But at the end of the day, you get to a point that you have to ask yourself, okay, who cares about this? Mm-hmm. Like, where's the money going to come from? Is there a market for this? Like, what if overnight I make this happen, I put it up, and it's there, and I flip a switch, and I'm now looking at everywhere. Who's going to pay for this? After 2 months, we got to a point that we realized, okay, yeah, this seems like it's going to change a lot of people's lives. A lot of companies are going to rely on this. And so sounds like a company. Let's go start a company doing it. So it wasn't like we're going to make a company. How do we start a company? It was more.
How do we solve this problem?
How do we solve this problem? And then we kind of thought we solved the problem. And then it was like, okay, well, who cares about this?
Right.
And then once we answered those two questions, that's when we thought it was going to be a company.
Did you at all apply for jobs or anything other than working on your technology? Because your graduation from business school is kind of coming up, and were you at all trying to get a full-time job before starting your company?
Oh yeah, no. So when we decided to start a company, that was it. We were just completely focused on Capella. But before that, I was getting rejected left and right. And that was like another reason I decided to start Capella, because I couldn't find a job.
That is ridiculous. Your background seems so perfect for any job that you would.
Right? I was so depressed. I was completely depressed. So there's this company here in the Bay that builds small satellites.
You can say their name.
I don't really want to say their name. Yeah, I'm not gonna say that. No, they're actually, we're all friends now. But I applied to get an internship there, and this was before Capella. And I didn't get the internship. And I was thinking to myself, look, I worked at NASA. This is what I've been doing for the past 10 years of my life. And
what am I missing?
And exactly. And so that was such a depressing moment. And it was anyway, I couldn't find jobs. And but once we decided to do Capella, it wasn't, we're not applying anywhere else. Mm-hmm. We were fully committed on Capella. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what was the first step you took whenever you decided this is it, we're going to start Capella? How were you prototyping this? Because it's such a advanced technology. It's not something you can just put together and I assume in your garage, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, the first thing is we had to raise some amount of money to do anything. Especially in what we do with satellites and hardware business. It's very difficult to not raise money and make progress, right? Mm-hmm. If you're doing a software company, it's much easier because you can make a prototype with just two computers and some software, right? So we had to raise some money. We got lucky. We got $200K of angel venture funding, and with that $200K, we sort of set some goals. Investors care about three things really. There are three risks that they're assessing every time that you're proposing something to them and they're considering a potential investment. There is a team risk, which is, can this team do what they're proposing to? Is this the right team? Do I believe them or not? And the earlier the company, this team becomes more important because, you're going to propose something. They know that what you're proposing today is not going to be what you're going to end up be doing, right? It's going to change. You're going to learn something. And so the key question for them is this team, capable of pivoting and figuring out the right answer 6 months from now? Because this is not the answer, right? So team risk. The other one is technology risk. Mm-hmm. Do they have something that actually might work? Is it unique? And then the third one is the market risk. Mm-hmm. Imagine the team is right, the technology right. Is there actually a market for it, right? So at any given time, these are the three things we're thinking about. And so when we raised that $200,000, we were really focused on building a team and de-risking the technology, and then just a little bit of the market. And so what we ended up doing was we were buying stuff from Fry's and Best Buy and Amazon, and we were, pulling together a piece of hardware. We put it on a Cessna on a little plane, and we were sort of just flying around and trying to capture imagery from our own prototype of the hardware to show, look, we've got the right team. We know how to do this. We can build it. And second, we've got some unique approach to the problem. And so that's what we ended up doing for the summer. And then we took that back to investors, and we sort of went through the same process of, okay, now we've done this, give us more money to do this. And it's been 2.5 years of that.
How was that feeling of raising $200,000 for the first time? I'm assuming, $200,000 in your bank account is a lot of money. How was that feeling?
I remember that night where I got notifications from our company's bank account that got a huge sum of money. It was like, because it came from 4 different investors and it came in chunks. It was like 50,000 and then another 50,000 and another 50,000. And I took screenshots of it and I was sending it to my mom. I'm like, look,
I'm doing this.
I'm doing aerospace and it makes sense. See, I didn't do oil. And she still got back to me. She was like, what is this? It was such excitement. I went out and I celebrated with my friends, and but that was the beginning of the work. Mm-hmm. And so we celebrated for a couple of days. It was really exciting. And then we went through $200,000 in 3 months. Oh, boy. Which is crazy when you think about it, coming from student life, and
right.
You're kind of budgeting, $5 here, $3 here. Do I eat this? Do I not eat this? Do I just
extra avocados or
extra
no?
avocado or not? And I'm still, we're a much bigger company, and we're spending a lot more money than $200,000 in 3 months, and I'm still struggling. Right? I go to work, and what I spend is like, $100,000 on this, and then I come home and I'm still thinking about the extra avocado and
ramen for the
day. So it's 2 different worlds that I'm living in. It's fascinating.
I wanted to ask you why you guys picked the name Capella.
You want the honest answer, or you want the nice,
no,
Capella is the
honest.
Name?
Honest.
Yeah.
Just go for it.
Yeah. So my co-founder, I'm just gonna throw this guy under the bus.
He's not here.
So we can do this. No, so he just picked so many horrible names. We're just brainstorming on ideas, and the type of imaging we do. The acronym for the SAR, SAR, synthetic aperture radar. And so one of the names that he picked was SAR Wars.
Oh my
Star
God,
Wars.
no!
And I was like, dude, no. The other one was Dinosaur, like dinosaur, but dynamic SAR. So things were going south. God. And I didn't have any better names either. I wanted to name the company Eagle Scout. So that was like very in your face, like we're gonna come, whatever. It was pretty bad.
Come get you.
Yeah, come get you. So at some point I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna Google name of stars and go through them and figure out which one I resonate with. And Capella is this binary star system that you can't really see with your naked eyes. You have to use instrumentation and X-ray. And I was like, okay, well, you can't see through clouds, and at nighttime you have to use us, and it got a nice ring to it, and it's peaceful. And if I say Capella, it's not like I'm gonna come and do whatever. So we picked Capella.
It fits pretty well.
Yeah, I like
think.
it. Yeah. Have you seen our logo though? The logo is pretty bad.
I've seen it.
Yeah,
it's fine.
It's like a recycle. We're changing the logos. That's why I'm talking about it.
Okay.
We're doing a rebranding. But the logo is we paid someone $50 to design the logo. It's pretty horrible, I think.
I wanted to kind of take it a little bit more towards asking you about the operations of the company. How are you building this team? How are you finding the people, and how are you interviewing them? Take us through the whole process.
Yeah. Mostly through our own network. That is, I think that I still believe that that's the best way of getting the best talent with the least amount of risk. And so between me and Will, I pretty much went and tapped into my old colleagues that I worked at NASA, and and it's a network effect, right? We bought the first 5 people were out of my network, and then we had their network, and so even to this date, we've got 40-some people. I would say majority of the company have known each other through some network. And so that was the way we decided to recruit, and that's the easiest way. It's not highly scalable, right? Once you get to the 50, that's, I think, when it's going to break, and you really have to think about scaling up your recruiting. But that's what we did. In terms of sort of interviewing and making sure people are compatible, that early in the stage of your company, when you've got really nothing, you want people that are committed and believe in the end goal, because they're not joining you because of the money, right? We had people who left their very, very stable jobs that were making probably 30-40% more to come join Capella, and some of them moved from other cities here. And those are the people you want. If someone comes in and they're trying to negotiate the salary when you're only 5 people, those are not the right people, and you just don't even want to continue a conversation with them. There's nothing bad with that. It's just that those are not the people who are going to make this happen for you.
How would you define the culture at Capella Space right now? I mean, Burning Man is a holiday, but
I assume pretty good.
Yeah, no, it's pretty chill. It's laid back. It's very family oriented. I think I'm running the company as if it was a family business. And this goes back to maybe just my culture, of the culture that I grew up in, the Iranian culture. So everyone feels like they're part of the family, and that's very important for me. That's a big piece of it. The other piece is we don't shut down any ideas. In fact, in the last 2.5 years, I don't believe anyone has ever gave anyone else a feedback of that's impossible. And so the response is usually, that sounds risky. And then we're like, okay, great, let's do that. And so, we're trying to do things very differently. And therefore, we don't shut down ideas. Everyone's idea is probably a good idea. And it's coming from a different perspective. And then there's no bureaucracy. There's no steps. And the only steps and the processes that we put in place is to ensure that the organization doesn't fall apart, right? Because as you're scaling up, we had to put an org chart together, and that was kind of weird, but we had to put it together because people need to know who's doing what.
Right.
Other than the basics, there's no extra layers, and that's also important.
Payam, how does it feel to be a CEO at such a young age? Yeah, that's interesting, because I don't feel like I'm a CEO until I have to feel like I'm a CEO. And so it's really strange because, I go to conferences and they introduce me as CEO of Capella. And those are the times I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'm a CEO of Capella. And so I guess it hasn't hit me yet, because we've been super deep into just making this happen. Things have happened so fast. The challenges, though, I think are, as a CEO, you're uniquely positioned to have insight into different parts of the company, whether it's the technical and the engineering and the product and the business and the fundraising and the customers. And so the challenge is keeping yourself sane, because every one of those departments have their own challenges. And you're looking at all the challenges across different domains. And so you've just got so many open things in your mind. And at the same time, you have to put your visionary, everything is good face or mask on to talk to investors. And the balance between back home or back in the office, you're trying to figure things out, and at any given time there's probably 100 things that are going wrong or not working. And then going back to investors and selling the dream and selling the vision and saying, yeah, we got this figured out. Right? That balance and that trade is very difficult.
What is keeping you up at night these days?
Yeah. this could go in any direction. I wouldn't say it's not one thing. I think it's just there are too many things that are happening at the same time. So it's just really difficult to turn off the mind, when you want to. And so it's not that there's one thing that's just like, oh my God, I'm about to lose this. It's more of there are 50 things happening at the same time, and I've got open tabs on all of them, and it's hard to just be able to close it at night and just go to sleep. That's been difficult.
And what is some of the practices that you've learned to do along the way to help you keep you sane and help you with that mental balance you need?
This is incredibly difficult, but I have tried to separate my happiness from my work. So what I realized is if my happiness is coming from work, there will be many days that work is just not doing good, right? And that will affect me. That will affect my happiness. And so as much as I can create layers and separations between what makes me happy as a person, and that's not work, it's not, my relationship, it's just me, that helps me back in the work, because then I can always be happy. I can always be myself. I can always be, peaceful and content. That is much, much harder to do than say. But that's been the biggest, I think, I don't know, the biggest, I'm blanking
trick.
on the word. Yeah, that trick. Yeah, there you go. The biggest trick.
What is the one advice you would give to someone who's just starting out building their company?
Don't do it.
It's a trap.
Yeah, it's a trap. Don't do it. No, I'm just kidding.
Great.
Yeah, right. I'm not being a really good guest here.
That's exactly what we want to share with our audience. Don't.
No, I think the biggest one is you have to be honest to yourself and figure out why you're doing it. And if it's anything other than I 100% believe in this, and I want to do, I believe what I'm doing is going to add value to the world, and I'm super passionate about it, don't do it, right? Because there will be so many ups and downs. There are more downs than ups, actually, right? The downs are really, really low. The lows are really, really low. I mean, it's depressingly low. The highs are also really high, but there are more lows than the highs. And if you are not doing it for passion, and if you're not fully committed and believe in what you're doing, you're going to give up. And it's just a matter of time. You'll either give up on the first one or the second one or the third one. And that would just be crushing. So I think the biggest advice I can give is don't do it for the money. There's no money in it. I mean, there's the probability of you making it is low, right? It's the failures are a lot. And so don't do it for the money. You can probably make money, like if you multiply the probability of money with the amount of money, you can probably make more money somewhere else at a high probability. So don't do it for the money. Don't do it for, I don't know, prestige or, freedom or all that. Everyone has a boss. Like I have a boss as well. And there's no prestige. I mean, I think we mostly, try to point out the successes like the Elon Musk and the Mark Zuckerbergs and all that stuff. It's actually not how it is in most cases, in 99.9% of the cases. So do it if you're passionate, do it if you believe in it, do it if you think it's the right product, it's the right solution, and no one else is doing it, or people are doing it differently, and yours is the right one.
That's a very good advice, actually.
Yeah. It's not all just rainbows and sunshine and butterflies.
Definitely not in San Francisco. There's no rain.
It's all foggy all the time.
It's all foggy all the time.
We still love it. So, Payam, here we are. Capella is launching its first satellite in the fall, in October. November
2018.
And what is your vision for Capella in the next few years? Where do you see this company going?
Yeah, so what we're trying to do is we are building an infrastructure around our planet to be able to monitor and collect valuable, unique data of what we do here on Earth, right? And majority of that so far has been happening terrestrially, right? You fly planes and helicopters and you try to monitor places, and that's not scalable. It's really expensive. And you can't do it often, right? You can't fly helicopters every hour over a certain area. And maybe you can do it for one area, but you can't do it for 1,000 locations. And so our vision is to do this globally and do it at scale and do it from space. And the sort of the tipping point is we can, things have dramatically evolved in the aerospace industry such that a little startup can launch a satellite, and it won't cost me $1 billion, right? So I can now offer monitoring services from space to businesses, to commercial business, and not just government, at a fraction of the price of you being able, you doing it terrestrially, right? So it's becoming cheaper to collect information from space than collecting the same information, if you could do it. In most cases, you can't from terrestrial. So our vision is, if you're a big company or a small company or a little mom and pop, you would be able to subscribe to our stream of data coming from space and look, giving you specific answers to whatever question that you have, right? You want to look at a parking lot, you want to monitor your pipelines, you want to look at some building in the middle of nowhere, you want to monitor how many cars are going and coming in and leaving. Whatever that is, we can help you, and we can do that from space, and you don't need to be a government agency to subscribe to this data.
What would you say has been the most rewarding aspect of being an entrepreneur in your experience?
Proving my mom wrong.
Persian mom.
I haven't succeeded on that yet, but I think I'm getting close. No, I think the biggest one is most of the people who have joined Capella take a huge leap of faith to join Capella. They had stable jobs, getting paid a lot more. In a lot of the cases, they left, they moved to San Francisco from other states. They brought their family. We have one person who has 4 kids, and he, along with the 4 kids and his wife, moved from somewhere else to the Bay. And that was a huge risk. And so there's this huge pressure on you as an entrepreneur to make sure, you're going to make it, right? Because they're relying on you. And I think nothing is more pleasurable or satisfying than, those people, those teammates of you coming to you, a year later and say, this was the best decision that I made. And I'm much, much happier here, and, just full of positivity. And that just makes you feel really good, right? Because at the beginning, you're super stressed. You have this huge pressure on your shoulders. And then as that pressure is getting left off because, you're becoming more stable, you raise more money, you have customers, you've proven that the company is going to be stable, that is an amazing feeling. Yeah, I think that's the best one.
You also mentioned that you've made, obviously, some mistakes along the way. Yeah, there's some points where you have to pivot and just completely change direction. If you could go back to when you were just starting this business, what would you do differently?
Oh, man, almost everything. I think I was trying to run at 200 miles per hour, and I would have slowed down a little bit because a little more planning and a little more planning in general would have helped me save some time instead of trying to go faster. Because I was going 200 miles per hour, but then I missed a whole bunch of things, and then I had to stop. I had to fully stop and go back and then restart again. And so spending some time initially to just plan things a little more, taking legal very seriously, that we're doing things that wasn't illegal, but it was it was like, oh yeah, we probably have to send this to our lawyers to review, but that's going to take a week and a half and it's going to cost us $3,000. It looks good, let's not do that. And then in cases, and these weren't big deals, but in cases, a month later, you're like, oh, I should have done that. And now I got to spend $10,000 and, take another 2 weeks. So things like that, I think, are very practical things that I would have done completely differently.
Yeah, that's really good advice, because a lot of times what is put out there on social media or these one-page articles on how to be an entrepreneur, they try to push the agenda of just do it. Just do start it. Just do it.
Yeah, it's a marathon. It's a marathon. I mean, you're going to be in it. Look, I've been doing it for 2.5 years. Satellite is launching in 2 months. So it took me Now, what I do is a little more time consuming, but it took me 2.5 years to get to a point where I'm just about to launch the first satellite. And it's going to take me another probably 2 years to fully, commercialize what I'm doing. And that's going to be 4.5, 5 years into it. And then it's going to take me another 3-4 years to scale it up. So it's a marathon. Don't kill yourself at the beginning. Plan all of these years ahead. And that's why it goes back to, you have to be really passionate about it, right? Because this is going to be your life, and it's going to be in your life for a good chunk of your career.
So, Pam, we plan on asking this question from all of our guests. Tell us one phrase in your native language, in your case, Farsi, that has no direct translation to English, and try your best to describe the meaning. And careful, there are 2 other native speakers here, so we know if you're...
We'll call you out if it's incorrect.
Is this PG-18? What's
Just go for it.
Just there are so many. I mean, there's so many things in Farsi that just makes absolutely no sense. I mean, especially if you listen to the lyrics of some of the Iranian music, and you try to translate that to English. Oh my God, it's a disaster. I mean, we sound like perverts, and but the one I would say is. Mush bukhoratet.
Oh my God.
And so let me repeat that. Mush bukhoratet. And that means, I don't even know. It's the direct translation of that would be, I hope a mouse would eat you. And it's weird. It's really weird. But what it means, and it has actually 2 meanings. If it's an adult telling it to a little kid, it means you're really cute.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't know why they decided, a mouse should eat you. Like, I don't know the story behind this. Do you know?
No, but I mean, my best guess would be a mouse is sort of cute. Like hamsters could be cute. And if the cute thing wants to eat you, then you must be really super cute. Yeah.
But then it also has like another meaning, which is if an adult tells an adult mush bukharat, it means like, it's like it's like, oh, you're being too cute. Like,
Stop it.
Yeah, stop it. Like, you're not actually being cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's so many things.
That was a good
Farsi.
one.
Yeah, there's so many things.
All right, so before we close out this session and say goodbye, Payam, how can our listeners connect with you, reach out to you if they have any brilliant ideas they want to work with you on?
Yeah, well, if I am on, I guess, all social medias out there. I haven't figured out Twitter yet. I don't know what's going on with Twitter. I don't know what to do. What do I do? Like, I can't tweet. Like, I'm just do
hashtag.
Yeah, I'm trying to get into it. Yeah, exactly. But the best way is probably LinkedIn. If you just search my name, I pop up, or or tweet me and I'll figure it out.
All right, Payam. It's been really lovely having you on Stories Untold. We wish you best of luck with Capella Space.
Thank you.
And have a lot of fun at your company holiday, Burning Man.
Yeah.
By the way, Burning Man is not our sponsor, but just
if
happens
they
to be.
want to be, we won't object.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, thank you, Payam.
Yeah, good to be here, guys. Thanks a lot.